Hello and welcome to today's video. So in this one we're going to be looking at what I think is a very underrated source of material, which is the drinks can. Readily available and very malleable. You can turn this into many different things, and I thought I'd take the time to explore because it's something that I've never really used before. And for this I really want to delve into the scratch building area of the hobby, which is something that I really enjoy and want to do more of. I recently got into the game Fallout Wasteland Warfare, and for this now I'm starting to build and print a few bits of terrain to flesh out my board. But that's not to say these same ideas can be applied to any sort of tabletop game. So enjoy the video and I will talk to you after. So the first thing to do is actually prep the sheet themselves. There's two natural lines at the top and the bottom, and all I did was get a sharp knife and just cut round here, trying to, avoid my fingers. Then with the top and bottom separated, it was time to try and lay this flat. So to do this I just need to put a straight line down one side so I can fold it out into a flat sheet. Grabbing a steel ruler, I just found a straight line in the printing on the back and just followed that. If you don't have a steel ruler, I'd seriously recommend getting one. It's one of the most useful things you can have whilst crafting. And because this material is really thin, it only takes a light scoring along the back to be able to separate the two pieces. Just with a quick squeeze and fold, you'll get a nice flat straight edge there. It's worth pointing out as well that all these edges are fairly sharp, so be careful when doing this. Because it's a can, it wants to fold back in on itself, and we need this to sit flat. So all I'm going to do is fold this the opposite way, just to try and get rid of that curve. This should largely get rid of it all, but there may still be a little bit. However, you won't really notice this after you finish doing what you're doing with it, especially if you're going to bend it and twist it like I will. So again, taking my steel ruler, I'm just going to quickly score off the edges so I get some nice square sheets out of it. And as before, it's a very thin material, so it doesn't take a lot of pressure to be able to get some nice straight edges. It was at this point I decided to take a sanding block to both sides just to rough it up a bit for better adhesion for the paint. So with the prep work done, we can actually move on to making the signs. So for ease, I just used the measurements of a ruler's width to cut the squares out for the signs themselves. I think it works out to probably just over an inch. Probably a little bit oversized for the scale that we want, but they will make them stand out a bit more on the tabletop. And then decided just to roughly run the edges over a sanding block just to take off any sharp points. For the bases, I grabbed three 25mm bases. These are from Rendera, I think the company is. I got them at a wargaming show a couple of years ago, and decided to use the flat area as the top side for mine, even though it's going to be covered in paste, so you wouldn't have seen the texture anyway. For the poles, I'm using 3x2mm I-beam, and I just decided to cut these into 40mm lengths. I think this gave me the right mix of height, and I can also adjust it a little bit by setting it off center on the back of the signs, which you won't see when you're looking at them. And then the simple next step is just to glue it all together. So I've got some Gorilla Glue here. This is like the standard in our house. Just a dab of that on and put it all together and leave more to dry. So it's a really simple build idea, and with a little bit of painting they'll come out looking great. So now for these three, I'm going to put texture paste on the bottom just because I'm doing like an arid wasteland desert theme on these. You can do any base you want, personal preference, but this is what I've gone for this time around. It's also worth noting, I think, that with this is there's only a very small connection point towards the base and the bottom of the I-beam, so the texture paste itself when it's dry will help hold it in place and stop it snapping off. Okay, so first big major step for painting is a white undercoat. This will help with all sorts, especially if you're doing white directional signs like I am. But following on for that, I'm going to use an Iron Warrior's base to deal with the metals. This is the pole on both sides and the back of the actual sign itself. So now the metal is all on, I'm going to move on and give the bases a coat. So for this, I'm going to use Vallejo Beastie Brown. It's kind of a nice mid-brown colour I found recently, and I think it works really well for bases. So for the next bit, I've jumped ahead a little bit and actually put the designs on. The black arrows and panelling are all done with like an acrylic pen. All the writing was done with acrylic pens as well. It was just the red circle and the actual yellow sign that were done in paint. And for this, I'm now starting to bend and twist like they've been out in the open for quite a while. The design of the signs themselves, I've taken inspiration from the games and from the Fallout wiki. These are from Fallout 76, and I have based my designs, on these, working to a good reference material and just trying to get myself in world. Now with the pieces suitably bent, I moved on to the next step and gave them an all over wash of Agrax Earthshade and let that dry. Now it's time for my favourite bit, which is weathering. You can see I've got my gloves on here as I'm expecting to get a little bit messy. And I'm using my patented two-step weathering technique, which is a sponge and some tweezers, and I've got some Vallejo rust texture on here that I'm just stippling on in places and trying to build it up. I'm kind of looking to do it a lot on the text as well, as it's not the neatest, but with a bit of a mask over it, through weathering you won't notice that it's a bit wonky. And the next step of the two-step is to use some Vallejo light rust wash just to paint on, particularly on the white bits, to make some light orange rust streaks and build up that corroded effect. And then to finish off, I gave the bases a wash of Rycon Flesh Shade and a dry brush of Ungor Flesh, just to give them that sandy, deserted wasteland look. And there we have 5 really simple, really easy to do road signs for my tabletop. I really enjoyed making these, and it just helped me flex my creative muscles a little bit. I really do enjoy scratch building, although I haven't done much of it recently. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. Again, it's not a very difficult technique, but it's one that can be used to great effect, I think. Scratch building is one of those things that I think can be really simple and really enjoyable just on its own. And as always, comments, whether they be good, bad, or in between, are always welcome. So feel free to drop a comment below. And while you're here, have a look around the rest of my channel and see what you think. If you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Well, that's all for today, but I will be back soon with another little video on how to make corrugated sheets, again using our faithful drinks can. So I will see you then. Thank you for watching.